In other news, Mayor Bloomberg has predicted riots in the streets if the economy doesn't create more jobs. This is, of course, in the first sense, just a shameful plug for Obama's job creation plan, which we know is a joke in the first place. I mean, his job council head is currently still employed at GE. That's Jeff Immelt, and he's committed absolutely to destroying the American economy and shipping jobs overseas. But what Bloomberg's doing here by, quote, predicting riots is just getting ready to blame the right for what they already know is coming. Gerald Celente, who's a frequent guest on this show, predicted these riots back in November 2008. We take you to a clip of that right now.
Basic trends, 2009 starts accelerating, more and more layoffs, more confidence lost. You talk about total implosion by 2012. What will it look like?
Crime is going to be rampant.
So Celente was obviously able to predict that there would be food riots and the rest of it because they're committed to destroying this economy. Everyone knows where it's headed. It's not even hard. We've been covering it for years as well. Also back in 2008, the IMF chief, then not disgraced Dominique Strauss-Kahn, also predicted that if they didn't start creating policies that didn't only benefit the super elite, that there would be pressure, civil unrest, and the rest of it. We know that the UK and the Army War College have warned about the possibility of economic riots in the UK as well as in America. And we also have this report from 2007 based on the Ministry of Defense report, which also predicted revolution, flash mobs, and brain chips, all based on middle-class economic pressures. So this has been in the works for some time, and Bloomberg's just trying to score political points here. Also in the news, we have Ralph Nader, again, sounding the same alarm he's been beating for many years, that the U.S. has become a two-party dictatorship, that we have no real political discussion in these so-called elections, and basically identifying how staged everything is. Ralph Nader joins a host of other leading sort of alternative left voices who also think Obama deserves to be challenged in the 2012 primary. That includes Kucinich, people like Michael Moore, people like Webster Tarpley, Cynthia McKinney, and the so-called anti-war left. And why not? Obama completely lied about bringing the troops home, ending the wars. He's only expanded it more and more. And now today on Infowars.com, Kurt Nimmo reports that a poll finds people prefer Hillary Clinton over Obama for 2012. Obviously, Hillary's not acceptable either, but Obama does deserve to be challenged and ask questions from his own base about why he didn't end those wars. Of course, that base is only moving towards people like Ron Paul, who has been a man of his word for many years. Now, in local news in Tucson, the city council has begun to kick out people who are uncivil or who make personal attacks during the commentary periods. And they're tying it directly into the shootings that happened back in January in Tucson that killed several people and nearly fatally wounded the congresswoman. So it's no coincidence that it's happening in Tucson, where they've already called to essentially restrict free speech, and now it's moving on to city council. Check out this clip of what happened.
When the people of Tucson speak through a verdict after listening to testimony for 3 weeks, and they say he's a liar and a scumbag, how do you guys get off hiring him?
Next speaker.
Make your point, but get off the personal attacks. And if you can't do that, then just keep your bile at home.
You think you're going to get away with it. You're angry because I called Miranda here.
Now you're into personal attacks. Okay.
Absolutely unfair.
Let's get to.
He said he acted with an evil mind.
Okay.
They were presented with clear
very well.
This is
that's it for the call of the audience. Let's go on to item number 7.
Court case.
Let's go on to item number 7.
Well, what happened today is they simply have said today, we don't want anybody saying anything negatively about a city employee or a city official in the performance of their duty.
And we have the rule in place that says if you can't come down and conduct yourself in a civil fashion without being offensive, then we're going to ask you to leave. And that's what
we have another rule in place, and that's called the First Amendment. It really doesn't matter if you agree with this guy's commentary. He has every right to call them out. And so I guess they're trying to move towards those kind of Congress rules where you're upset about the fox being in the hen house, but you can't even identify who the foxes are in the room or call them out by names. Now, again, this mayor is one of 150 mayors who signed a pledge back after Jared Lee Loughner shot so many people, calling for Americans to choose their words carefully and to speak truthfully without accusing. Very bad precedent, and we hope that doesn't stand. And I would imagine we're probably going to try to get this gentleman on the show. Whether or not you thought he was civil in this meeting, he, of course, as I stated, has a right to say what he said. In other news, the Libyan Al-Qaeda gets a seat at the United Nations. That's after more than a month from people like Hillary Clinton pushing for the National Transitional Council to get the United Nations seat, which has been de facto vacated ever since the siege against Gaddafi began. The fact that this is Al-Qaeda who's taken over in Libya has been well known since at least March. We've covered the stories. Former Libyan Al-Qaeda leader says there's more than 1,000 jihadists among the rebels. This story from the Telegraph. Libya, the West, and Al-Qaeda on the same side. We also have freelance jihadists join Libyan rebels. So from the NFL to shopping centers and more, Americans will be increasingly kept under a police state, patted down for regular behavior, but Al-Qaeda will be given a seat at the already totally discredited United Nations, which willingly passed the resolution to allow the NATO airstrikes on Libya in the first place. And finally tonight, we want to cover the move to create an artificial volcano type effect through geoengineering the climate. This actually has very little to do with volcanoes, which, by the way, put off far more CO2 than man could even dream to put out. It has to do with a scheme to pump sulfur and I guess other particles into the atmosphere through a mile-long or so glorified garden hose that's going to be suspended by this balloon. And that's a plan that's been around since at least 2008. We have AP stories talking to White House science advisor John P. Holdren, the population extremist, who's called for this kind of things, including separate plans to spray sulfur and aluminum particles into the atmosphere to create what they call albedos, artificial clouds to reflect sunlight. And then we have the Council on Foreign Relations reporting on geoengineering on a planetary scale and the geoengineering option. And this incorporates many of the leading scientists who all say this is a good plan, even though it's extremely dangerous. So when man has supposedly altered the atmosphere through carbon dioxide and man-made global warming, they're now going to further alter the atmosphere and inject even more artificial particles. Are they out of their minds? Do they not know that sun is the driver of life on this planet? And if they try to block it out, it's just going to lead to something like the Matrix movie, which predictively programmed a blocking out of the sun, a total darkening of the sky. That's really what they proposed here. It's outrageous. We should learn more about it, and we should oppose it. Okay, well, that's it for this September 16th edition of the InfoWars Nightly News. But, of course, the program itself is only getting started. And remember, we're not corporate sponsored, and we're not government bailout money sponsored. We're supported only by our subscribers and those who wish to donate to us. So if that's you, please help us expand and reach even more people with this powerful new platform. Alex will be back next week, but for tonight, I'm Aaron Dykes, signing off.